Hey, you guys. Welcome to Talk About It Thursdays. I am your host, Karen Bailey. Let me know when you're on. I would love to say hello to you guys. You guys, I hope everybody's having an amazing Thursday. We are one day away from a new month, you guys. We are heading into our month of May. And so let's talk today about where we are. This is kind of a checkup just to see how we're progressing through the year. You know, I've always told you guys, you always have to be the person that checks you. You always need to check yourself. You don't need anybody else keeping you accountable. It's our job. If we want to be better, then we're going to have to learn to evaluate ourselves. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. My topic today is baggage claim. Baggage claim. And most of us who, hey Kinsley, most of us who travel, we know what a baggage claim is. You know, if you've ever been in an airport, you've ever had to check a bag, you know that a baggage claim is the designated area in the airport terminal where arriving passengers retrieve baggage that they checked. And it's on a little carousel, and you have to go to the carousel and you have to identify your bag, and then you can take your bag and then you can go on your way. So that's what we want to talk about. And when I say baggage claim, I want y'all to think about three words: designated, arriving, and retrieving. That's what we want to focus on today. And with all of us having the same amount of 24 hours in a day, what are we doing to make our lives better? You know, my life is going to be different than your life. We all have things that we talked about at the beginning of the year that we wanted to do better in 2026. So where are we when it comes to that? And how much baggage are you carrying from 2025 into 2026? I want to help you today. I want you to lighten your load because we still have more months to go. We're not quite at the halfway point of the year, but we should be lightening our load a little bit by now. It should be getting better and better throughout the year. So ask yourself three questions. What are you holding on to that you need to let go of? Number two, what are you claiming that no longer suits you? Number three, is the weight of the baggage that you keep carrying from year after year, is it worth it? Is it worth the bad back? Is it worth the bending over? Is it worth the stress? Is it worth the anxiety? These are the three things you have to ask yourself. Nobody can answer those questions for you. But let's get into it. Now, we all carry some personal baggage. There's no way to live this life. There's no way to be in relationships. There's no way to have been married or divorced or, you know, whatever, without having some baggage. But we have the baggage. And sometimes it's filled with love. Sometimes it's filled with trauma. Sometimes it's filled with rules and instructions. Hey, Sheila. Sometimes it's full of discipline, sometimes even punishment. And sometimes that bag is full of a lot of expectations. These bags that we all carry, our own individual personal bags, these bags make up who we are. Those bags came from our own individual past, our own individual experiences, our mistakes, our wins, our second chances. All of those are in the bags that we carry. So as we walk through life as an adult, it's our job to decide what we hold on to and what we let go of. And being an adult, you guys, means we have to make the hard choices. You know, the people that don't choose to let go of some of their old baggage, you're going to find that you can only go so far in life. You can only go so far being heavy. You can only go so far in life holding on to every little thing. And one thing I've had to learn about myself is a lot of the mistakes I've made, or I consider mistakes, which were probably more or less lessons, but some things I could have done better, was because of the baggage that I was carrying. It's because of the things that I heard, things that were said to me, people that I allowed in my life, people that I trusted, the friends I hung around, the neighborhood I grew up in. All of those things help fill up those bags that we're all carrying around. So when we consider our personal baggage, we need to think about three things. And I told you to remember these three words. Number one, designated baggage. Designated baggage means what actually is assigned or belongs to you. That means it's designated to you. It actually belongs to you. Because sometimes we can carry around baggage that don't belong to us. Other people can dump their problems on us, and I used to be weighed down with other people's bags, other family members' bags, other friends' bags, and I used to wonder why I was so tired all the time. What it was, those were not my bags to carry, but I allowed people to dump on me because I listened, because I cared, because I got involved. But those bags were not my designated bags. And it took me getting older. It took me getting to the point where I valued my peace like I do today, to where I'm not taking your bags. You're going to have to take them with you. If you bring them, you're going to have to take them back with you, because I'm not going to take on something that has nothing to do with me. So those are your designated bags. Those actually are assigned to you, and they actually belong to you. Number two, the arriving bags. The arriving bags are the bags that are beneficial to take from place to place. Some things you need to take from place to place. Some things have those good nuggets, that wisdom, those reminders of what happened the last time. Sometimes you need to take those bags with you just to keep your head straight, to help you remember that, okay, you've been through this before. Now, you said you didn't want to go through this again. Okay, I'm here to remind you that we're going to do better next time, that we're not going through this same mulberry bush again. We're not just going to keep going in circles. So sometimes those arriving baggages, they're beneficial because you need the things in those bags for where you're going. And you need those things to take from place to place to place. Because life is about moving forward, you guys. You're always moving forward. If you're moving backwards, something is wrong. There's something in your bags that you need to let go of. If you can look at your life today and say, I'm further behind than I was last year. I don't feel like I'm gaining any momentum. You need to sit down, open those bags, and start getting rid of some stuff. And number three, those retrieved bags. Those are the bags that you have to decide what's valuable enough for you to hold on to. Those are the things you have to decide. This is going with me if nothing else goes with me. That's where your faith is. That's where your compassion is. That's where your strength comes from. That's where your values come from. Like I said, sometimes there are rules in your bag. And sometimes those rules are basically, I'm going to love myself and I'm not going to let people take advantage of me anymore. See, those bags are very valuable. Your self-esteem is in that bag. Your what I like to call your bar that you set. As you get older and as you go through things, you set your bar a little bit different. When you start learning how to love yourself, you change your mind about some things. You change your mind about what you will tolerate. You change your mind about what you want. You no longer want mediocre. You don't want people giving you crumbs when you're putting all the effort in. You're going to want people to show you, that they're all in just like you are. Those are the things that are in those retrieved baggages, because those are the things, the lessons you had to learn about what happens when you don't love yourself, what happens when you settle, what happens when you put other people's value above your own. Those are those retrieved bags. That's valuable enough for you to go get and for you to hold on to it, because you're going to need that later in your life. And so let's talk about the weight of the baggage. My first topic is the weight of the baggage worth it? Are you carrying too much? Sometimes in this life, when you have a good heart, a big heart, people will take advantage of you. People will ask you for money that you really don't have to give. They try to look at your circumstance and decide how you can benefit them. And sometimes because we feel guilty about not helping people, or we feel guilty or feel like, because I'm their friend, I can't really say no to them. That baggage is too heavy of a burden. You have got to understand in this new phase of life that we're all going through, carrying all those bags from our past, it's going to get heavy and it's going to weigh you down and it's going to limit you. You have to love yourself enough to say no to people. I say no to my family. I say no to my children. I say no to my friends. I say no to my acquaintances. I say no at that job when they're trying to run me ragged and I feel like they're taking advantage of me because I'm a hard worker. You have got to love yourself enough to recognize when you're being used. You got to love yourself enough to say, hey, this is not my bag to carry. I didn't help you get in this situation. This is too much for me. And there's nothing weak about saying that. That is about preserving your life and preserving your peace, because when you run out, who's going to be there for you? You have to ask yourself, when you get down, who's going to be there for you? Who's going to come and lift you up? Who's going to come and pour into you? So you have got to preserve yourself as much as possible, but you have to lighten your load. And it can be such a burden to drag ourselves down and hold ourselves back with all that extra weight. We have to then decide to either sit in the mess with all those bags, barely making any progress as we drag along our past and choose to leave all the potential that we have behind, because opportunities are always going to come, you guys. But if you're weighed down with bags, you're going to leave those opportunities behind. You're going to miss them, because when you're weighed down with too much, you don't even see what you need to see. Sometimes God can be putting something right in front of you, but you're so exhausted from carrying all those bags, so you don't even recognize it when God is trying to bless you or when God is trying to open a door for you. So that's the cost of carrying too much weight. So we have to make grown folk decision and say, you know what? This is too much. I need to take some time and I need to unpack this and I need to figure out what's important and what's not important. And a lot of times we carry a lot of burdens with us, hateful words that people say to us now and in our past. I've gotten better about letting things roll off my shoulders than I used to be. I used to be really sensitive, but I had to pray about that spirit because that spirit was hindering me because my feelings were getting hurt all the time, and I was like, Lord, why, does it seem like it bothers me more than it bothers anybody else? People could say things to me and then they could go on and be happy, this, that, and the other, and I would be upset about it for weeks. Those were those burdens that I was carrying in my bags. And I have to understand that people that are miserable, they're going to try to make you miserable as well. And then once I realized that hateful people and hurting people and people that are unhappy, their whole idea is to steal your joy. And so you have to be careful, you have to be mindful, and you have to understand that that's not your burden to bear. The fact that they're unhappy, that's not your problem. The fact that they're bitter, that's not your problem. The fact that they have no joy, that's not your problem. Your job is to preserve what God has given you, and you have to let go of those things. I've learned how to care about people but I've learned how to walk away, and I've learned how to pray for people, because sometimes caring can get you in trouble, especially when you care too much. Some people really need all that attention, and so they just feed on the fact that you have a kind heart, that you have a loving heart. We cannot carry burdens from other people. We cannot. All of us make choices. Our choices have consequences. And you have to remind yourself that that person didn't just get in that situation overnight. That didn't just happen to them. That person made some choices that put things in play. And so therefore, all you can do is pray for them. You got to pray for them, but you got to get out of the way and let the Lord deal with them, and allow God to show them how to turn their life around and make better decisions, so they don't have to keep going through the same stuff all the time. And then when it comes to past hateful words that people have said to you, some of us have been in relationships with people that you love, and they've said some things that just really broke your heart. Family members can say some things to you that hit you like nobody else can. But people expect you to just get over that with time. But that's easier said than done. Some people can touch you a little bit more than others. And so it takes really a move of God for you to be able to get past that and let that go and take that out of your bag, so that you're not carrying it for years and years and years. To be able to truly stop carrying that bag of hurt, you guys, and just reminding yourself all the time what somebody said to you and how bad it hurt you, that is a spiritual process. That's something you have to pray for. That's something that you have to really do the work about. You have to really start saying the opposite of those things to yourself, and reminding yourself that you are not who they said you are. You are not, you're not finished, that God is still writing your story. And so you have to constantly remind yourself about that until that tape or that video of what they did and what they said no longer replays in your mind. And sometimes you can't always just drop it and leave it, because you're still having to deal with those people that hurt you. That's the hardest part. That's why I talk about, family that hurt you. Sometimes it's your spouse that hurts you. And you're in relationships with these people, lifelong relationships with these people. Even when you get hurt at the church, but you still got to show up. You still have to do your duty. You still have to try to focus on God and be there for the right reason without the pain and the malice in your heart. That's easier said than done. And so God has to help you. God has to help you find a way to deal with those things when you still have to deal with the people that hurt you. Because one thing I know about people, everybody's not sorry for what they did. Sometimes you can confront them about it, and they'll come up with a million excuses as to why they acted the way they did, why they said what they said, because they're not ready to forgive, because they're not sorry. And we have to learn how to accept that and just understand that we have to forgive people for our own peace of mind. Even if they're not sorry, even if they never apologize, you still have to let them go. Don't allow them to add that extra baggage on your back that can last for years and years. And then you're constantly making the next person that comes into your life pay for what other people have done to you. Don't allow that baggage. And only God can help us let go of the burden of people's words, people's expectations, and people's opinions. You have to get to a point in your life where people's opinions don't run your life. And that was hard for me, because I was always a people pleaser. In my younger years, I was always wanting to make everybody proud, everybody happy. But I had to find out for myself that sometimes people won't give you your props, no matter how good you do, no matter what you do for them. They're ungrateful. And so you have to learn to let that go, to stop needing that from other people. You need to be able to love yourself enough to pat yourself on the back, to remind yourself that you're able, that you are wonderfully made, and that you're fearfully made, and that you can do all things through Christ Jesus. You need to be the one that's proud of you. Don't expect people to clap for you when you're doing well. And I found this to be true, and you guys will probably agree with me. Good news. Good news. It takes forever to get out. But let something bad happen, or let you do something, that's got a lot of drama in it, and it spreads like wildfire. And I've never understood why people are so quick to spread something bad. But when something good happens, everybody's quiet. Like they're in church. They're like, oh, okay. No excitement about it. So you have to be your own cheerleader. And I'm telling you, when you finally get in your spirit that you don't need other people to make you feel worthy. And like I say, it took me a long time to get there, to where people's opinions don't faze me now, and I don't need other people to make me feel valuable anymore. That is a freedom that I can't even explain, because you start living on your own terms. You start living in the light that God called you to live in. When you stop worrying about the opinions of everybody else, when you stop needing them to be proud of you, you stop needing for them to clap for you, and you understand that this walk is about you and God. It's about you and God. As long as you're good and God is happy and pleased with you, you don't need anybody else. Anything else is just icing on the cake. But you have got to get to a point in your life that you don't live by other people's expectations. Because one thing I have learned about that, people will raise you up one day and put you on a pedestal, and you do one little thing wrong and they will tear your name down. People are brutal that way, and they are quick to judge. So you need to not allow the expectations of others to run your life. And then God's opinion of what is good and what is His will, that's what you need to worry about. Because you know what? When you start focusing on what God wants you to do and where God wants you to be and where you're trying to go and the things you're trying to accomplish in life, you don't have time to worry about what anybody thinks about what you're doing. That's why it's so important, you guys, to have goals. That's why it's so important to have a vision for your life, because a vision will keep you from listening to all of that outside noise. When you have your mind made up that this year, 2026, is going to be a better year for you, you ain't trying to hear nothing anybody says. But you got to have your mind made up. Because when your mind is made up, nobody can turn you around. Nobody can stop you from doing what you need to do to make things better in your life. And then being able to walk in forgiveness, that's another thing that will free you. When you are able to truly forgive people, and when you see them, they don't faze you, they don't upset you, you don't even notice them in the room, you've been freed. You've been set free from those bags that were trying to hold you down for the rest of your life. That's what the offenses are about. It's about stealing your joy. It's about weighing you down. It's about tacking on extra bags that you got to drag throughout the rest of your life. The enemy loves to see you worn down. He loves to see you tired. He loves to see you about to give up. But when you release that forgiveness in the atmosphere, when you let people know, girl, I ain't even thinking about that no more. Girl, I done forgot all about that. It's something freeing about that. It's something freeing about it. But once you let go and you feel the release of the weight, it changes you. Even if your situation doesn't change, you change. You change, and you change how you deal with people. And then family hurt. Like I said, we have to learn how to deal with people, you know, because sometimes there's jealousy in families, you know, and there's a lot of generational stuff in your family. I have learned this works for me. I know who's got what personality. I know who carries jealousy in their heart in my family. And what I do is I limit my time with those people. I don't try to change them. I don't try to tell them they're wrong. I don't try to make them explain why they say the stuff they say about me, this, that, and the other. What I've learned to do is love them and give them to God. But I don't have to give you all of my time, because my time is my time. Your time is precious, so don't waste your time trying to tell grown folks how to act. You know, treat people the way you want to be treated. And sometimes they won't treat you right, but still, you're clear. Your conscience is clear because you did what was right. You did what you were supposed to do. And so a lot of times we got to stop letting the hurt from the people we have to deal with weigh us down. That's our family. That's those things that happen at church. That's that betrayal from a friend or a loved one. You have to make up your mind. Okay, that hurt. I'm going to process it. I'm going to deal with it. But I'm not going to keep carrying that year after year after year. I don't want to keep worrying about that. I don't want to keep crying about that. I don't want to keep talking about that, because my goal is to lighten my load so that I can be free to be who God created me to be, so I can be free to walk into the opportunities that God is going to put in front of me. Number 2, what are you holding on to that you need to let go of? That's another question. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're carrying anything with us until a major problem comes in our life. And we overreact or we do the wrong thing, and we have to stop and say, oh my God, where did that come from? Why did I get so angry? Why did that upset me so much? It's because you haven't let go of that baggage from your past, and it will make you overreact. And many times we're so busy pointing the finger at somebody else, we can't see the hurt that we're causing other people. See, when you don't let go and when you don't forgive, you end up hurting somebody else down the line. That's why that forgiveness is so important, because you never know when that thing is going to pop in your head and you're going to say something ugly to somebody that didn't deserve it. You're going to say something to this new love interest in your life that's going to shock them because they didn't do anything to you, but you pulled that from what old Ray Ray did to you, and now you're treating this new guy in the way, and you're treating him in a way as if he did it to you. So when you don't get rid of those bags, you end up being the one that's hurting other people. And see, one excuse we use for holding on to things from our past is fear. We're afraid. You know, a lot of times we hold on to offenses from other people instead of just letting them know that you don't appreciate how they talk to you or what they did. You have to confront people. That fear of confrontation, that's a baggage. That person comes in the room and your whole demeanor changes, or you start getting chills up your spine, or you tense up, or you ready to leave when they show up. No, you need to go ahead and confront that person and say, hey, can I talk to you? I just want you to know what you did. It really hurt me. Whether you're sorry or not, I just wanted you to know. And I want you to know today, I forgive you, because I don't want to keep worrying about this. I don't want to keep talking about this. I don't want to feel this way every time I see you. So I've gotten it off my chest. So whether you're sorry or not, I just want you to know I forgive you and we're good. And you walk away. You walk away. You know, their apology is not your responsibility, but you being able to forgive them frees you to walk away. Now you can walk with your head up. Now you know that you have confronted the thing that's been worrying you. You've confronted the things that's been stressing you. And like I say, those people may never change, but you change. You change because you took control of the situation and said, you know what? Now they know. So when they see me, they know. They know what they did. And it's all good. I'm going to speak if they speak. If they don't want to speak, cool. But that frees you from so much. You have got to stop being afraid and holding on to these offenses and not saying things to people when they've hurt you. And what you don't confront, it'll consume you. It'll get down inside of you. And it'll end up controlling your life. You have got to let people know when they're wrong, especially when it's concerning how they treat you and what they say to you and how they deal with you. If they never speak to you again, that's fine. But they know what they did because you made them aware. And most of the time they already know, but they feel like you don't know. But you need to take control so you can let go and you can get rid of that bag. And then find what is worth keeping, put it in your rolling suitcase, and leave the rest of it behind you. This will lift your shoulders and raise your head. You know, because a lot of things that we've held on to, it keeps us in a state of being ashamed. It keeps us in a state of feeling like we're not good enough. No, you need to keep what's worth keeping, put it in your rolling suitcase, leave the rest of that mess behind, and raise your head up and let's go. And so, number 3, the third question you need to ask yourself, what are you claiming that no longer suits you? We outgrow stuff, y'all. We do not need the same stuff today that we needed 10 years ago. We don't even need the same people that we needed 10 years ago. We don't need the same hangout places that we needed 10 years ago. We should be evolving. And so some of the things that say 10, 15 years ago that we were all into, we should have outgrown them by now. We should be moving forward. And so what are you claiming that no longer suits you? Number 1, the wrong labels. What you used to do. That's what the label is. You know, people will identify you with what you used to do unless you show them something else. People will always want to remind you, man, remember when blah, 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 girl, remember when you did such and such and such and such. Wrong labels. If that's not you anymore, let them see who you really are. And let them know that's the old me. That's not even who I am today. You have to stop claiming the wrong labels. Let people know that's not who you are. And then the next thing you need to stop claiming is what's not working for you. You know, just because it's familiar does not mean that it's working for you. If you're not making any progress, you got to stop claiming those behaviors, claiming those friendships, claiming the places that you keep going where nobody's progressing. You're going to have to let go of those things because they no longer suit you. Not if you want to grow, not if you want to be better. You got to leave some stuff behind and you got to leave some people behind. Hey, Shakita, you got to leave some people behind. And that's okay because they should be leaving you behind too because they should be growing too. And then those beliefs or ideas that no longer fit your life. You know, there are some things that I thought about, you know, just the world itself, some things I thought about church, some things I thought about, you know, certain people in general, you know, positions that people hold. I don't think that way now because my eyes have been opened about some things now that I've evolved and now that I've paid attention, started really paying attention and getting my relationship with God where I know it needs to be. You know, my mind has changed about some stuff. You know, some things that used to be really important to me, whether it be how I looked or, you know, what label that I wore and all of that stuff doesn't matter to me anymore. Not like it used to. You know, I want to evolve in my mind as well as in my lifestyle, as well as in my intellect. You know, in order to do that, you got to remember it's a process. You should not still be thinking the same way you were thinking 10 years ago. And you probably won't believe some of the things that you used to believe because the world is changing. So you've got to evolve in your thinking or you're going to get left behind. So all of this is part of a process. We have to change our minds and our opinions about some things. Number one, like those outdated career or professional beliefs. You know, back in the day when our parents got on a job, they worked that job from the time they were teenagers until they died, some of them, or until they were too old to work. They just felt trapped. They had to stay at that job, you know, for security forever and forever. But we know now that we have choices. We know now that we can go back to school and do something different. We know now there's many ways to do whatever profession that you're in. You don't have to stay at one place and take it and take whatever they give you and take whatever treatment they give you because you know that's security. You have to be bold enough to say, if this is no longer serving me, I'm going to have to leave and do something different. You know, and then even in your career field, you know, people change their careers. Even though they went to school for one thing, when that feels like its time is up, people are going and doing something different. There's nothing wrong with seeing what else you can do. You do not have to stick with what you went to school for the rest of your life. Don't limit yourself like that. Make sure that you are opening the opportunity to see what all God has created you to do in this lifetime. You know, that's something that I'm really working on. I just want to see what else I can do. God has shown me that I'm good outside. I'm good at building. I just wrote my first book, y'all, and got it published. You know, I'm just like, God, you tell me what's inside of me. I'm not limiting myself anymore. While I still work as a nurse, if God tells me to do something different, I'm going to give that up. I'm going to give that up and I'm going to move on to the next thing. Because life is about changes. Life is about exploring what's next. And you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid to do that. And then that old mindset that hard work and loyalty is always rewarded. Look how people that are on these jobs, been there 20, 30 years, those are the first people they try to get rid of because they don't want to pay what they're paying them, so they just get somebody new and they pay them less. You know, it's a business. So just because you work hard and you're loyal, you may not always be rewarded. What about that person in the family that's always giving? Sometimes your family don't even appreciate you. They won't say thank you. They act like as soon as you say no to something that you've never done anything for them. So just don't get your expectations into thinking just because you work hard, just because you're loyal, that you will always be rewarded. Sometimes you're going to have to wait on your reward from God because people just not going to give it to you. Sometimes people are just users and they will use you up and then until you're no value to them again. And then you've wasted all that time. You've been loyal and you didn't get anything for your trouble. So we have to change our mindset about that. And then the next thing, if you're not qualified to start over, is because I'm too old to start over. You know, some people will tell you, girl, you too old to be trying to start a new career. Stop letting people tell you what you're too old to do. Is there anything too hard for God? Ask yourself that. God don't care nothing about your age. Look at all the things that he's done with people in the Bible that were 100 years old, 120, 150 years old. God doesn't care about your age. That's a man thing. And that's a way of them keeping you in your place by saying, ooh, you too old to be trying to start over. You too old to be going back to school. You too old to be starting this, that, and the other. Limiting yourself like that ignores the ability that you have to retrain and reinvent yourself, even late in life. As long as you breathe in, you can reinvent yourself. And I wouldn't let anybody stop me. If I have a desire in my heart, stop listening to people that's not doing anything with their life. Those are usually the ones that are quick to try to tell you how you too old to do this. Girl, it's too late for you to be doing. You should have done that when you was in your 20s. You have to shut out that noise. Those are haters. Those are haters. Anybody that does not encourage you to change and to be better and to explore all the gifts and talents that you have, that person is not your friend. And you can tell them I said it. God has opened my eyes so much, you guys, about who is for you and who is against you. A person that is for you will light up when you talk about doing something new. They will get excited with you. Even if they're not doing it, they excited for you. They just want to see you win. They just want to see you do it. And I used to surround myself with people that I didn't even realize weren't for me. But that's why it's so important, you guys, to get your relationship with God where it needs to be, get your self-esteem where it needs to be, remind yourself of who you are, and understand that the only approval you need is God's approval. When you start doing that and ask God for discernment, He'll show you the people in your circle that don't want to see you do better, that don't want to see you win. And usually it's because they're not doing anything with their life. So trust God, trust the process, but understand that you can't always listen to other people when you're trying to do something. You know, when I started writing this book, you guys, I didn't tell anybody. And the reason I didn't is because God had already showed me who was going to try to discourage me from doing it. So me and God had to do it quietly. And then once I put it out, then I let everybody see what they need to see. But sometimes you need to move in silence, especially when God has called you to do something, because the enemy will use anybody that allows him to use them. That's family, that's friends, that's church, that's anybody that allows to discourage you from moving forward. Because one thing about it, when God does something in you, it's not just for you, it's to bless other people. And so once you understand that you have a purpose, that God is using you to do these things, you'll learn how to be quiet. You'll learn how to move when God tells you to move. You'll learn how to announce things when God tells you to announce them. Because that way, the devil doesn't get a foothold. That way, he doesn't get in your head. That way, he doesn't get in your spirit and water down what God is trying to do in your life. So don't always tell everybody what you're doing. When God shows you a plan and a vision, run with it, because he's the only one that you need. So run with it. You and God run with it, and then you reveal it when God says it's time to reveal it. And then those traditions and those social assumptions, those are the things that we have to change as we evolve. You know, a lot of times, people feel like they have to follow a traditional timeline, be married by 30, retired by age 65. Those things are outdated. Those things are outdated. This world has changed. People are still working into their 80s, and they're happily working. People are waiting to get married or not getting married at all. You know, we have allowed society to tell us what happiness looks like, what success looks like. Stop allowing other people to decide what your life is going to be. What's meant for somebody else may not be meant for you. And you have to be okay with that. And then that idea that you need to be fine all the time. You know, every time somebody asks you how you doing, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm good, and not show vulnerability. You know, when you do that, all you do is internalize all of that pain, all of that suffering by yourself. And you're not fine. And it's okay to tell somebody, you know what, I'm having a rough day. And if they say, hey, you want to talk about it? If that person is not trustworthy, no, I don't. Thank you for asking, but no, I'm good. I need to have some time by myself. Because you can't tell everybody everything. So you be careful about who you vent to and who you share your secrets with, because everybody is not for you, like I said before. So ask God to show you who you can talk to and who you can express yourself with. And sometimes it's just going to be God. Sometimes you just need to get by yourself alone with God and cry and scream and say what you need to say and cry your tears and dry it up, wash your face and keep it moving. But that idea that you have to look like you have it going on all the time is harmful. It's harmful to you because you've got all of those emotions you're suppressing, and you have to live your life hiding and lying about where you are and what's going on with you. So don't fall into that trap of thinking you have to be, as they like to say, hard all the time, or that you have to put on a facade all the time. Just be who you are. Take your time, your me time, learn how to meditate, learn how to get away from people, take your vacations, so that you can be fine. Because life is going to throw some stuff at you, and sometimes you're not going to be ready. So it's okay that you're not fine. That does not make you weak. And then another thing that a lot of times is an outdated belief is we have to please everybody. The people pleaser. We often say, I just want everybody to be happy. I just want peace. I used to say that all the time. Like that was my responsibility. Why is everybody else's happiness and everybody else keeping the peace my responsibility? But I used to do that. I used to take that on. I just want everybody to get along. I just want everybody to be happy. You cannot make grown folks want peace if peace is not in them. And it took me forever, feels like, to understand that their happiness, their lack of peace, that is not my bag to carry. I had to go get my peace for myself. I had to go get my joy for myself. That is an individual thing, and you can't bring people joy and you can't bring people peace. That is not something you can give. That comes from God. And once I finally understood that grown-ups can get some stuff for themselves, I stopped trying to babysit everybody. When people didn't want to get along, I just left the situation. I'm not going to stand in the middle and mediate with a bunch of grown-ups that don't want to act right or don't want to let go of past grudges or past hurts, this, that, and the other. If you don't want that for yourself, that is not my job. And once I learned to let that go and leave those bags where they were and just leave the atmosphere, my life got so much better because that was not my responsibility. And I always thought I had to be the peacemaker, but that is not my responsibility. My job is not to create strife. My job is to impart wisdom to those who will listen. But if you don't want to listen, and if you want to fight and carry on, I'm getting out of the way. I'm leaving because my peace is too valuable to me. And then the next thing we want to talk about is those personal habits and those mindsets that are outdated. That fact that we say things like, oh, I'll do it later. That's that spirit of procrastination. We have to get over that because you know what? People think they have so much time. Oh, I'll do it later. I'll get to that later. Oh, yeah, I'll do that next week. We assume that we have that time. Procrastination and behavior like that is a thief of time. It prevents personal growth because what happens usually when you put something off? Don't you do it more than once? You'll put it off and say, oh, yeah, I know I was going to do that today, but I'll do it. And then next thing you know, you just pushing it on down the line. And you have stunted your own growth. You have stunted your own progress with procrastination. And that's a spirit. And you have to recognize it for what it is. And you have to make up your mind that I'm going to let my word be my bond. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to give myself a timeline and I'm going to do it. I'm going to stop putting stuff off that I could actually go ahead and take care of, that I can actually go ahead and do so that I can move forward and go on to the next thing. And then those things we say to ourselves like, oh, I'm not creative, I'm not talented like they are. You know, we say those things and compare ourselves to other people because maybe our gift is not what their gift is. You know, when I stopped comparing myself to other people, I learned what my gifts were. When I stopped trying to live up to what everybody else was doing and I started being an individual, God started showing me all of my gifts. He started showing me how to do things that a lot of other people don't know how to do, because now I stay in my own lane. Now I do what Karen is supposed to do, not what anybody else is doing. And when you start comparing yourself to other people and saying things like, oh, she's doing that, but I can't do that. I'm not creative. I'm not talented like that. You are limiting yourself. Hey, Nikki, you are limiting yourself and you're limiting your potential. You know, God doesn't need all of us to do the same things, but God has something for you to do. But once you start saying things like, oh, I'm not talented, oh, I'm not gifted, oh, I'm not smart, guess what? You're not going to do anything because you truly believe that. And those are the thoughts and the things that we do and the behaviors that hinder us. Those are the things that keep us in the same place year after year after year. And I think about, you know, just raising boys, you know, the things that we used to say to our boys. And it was those things that were passed down to us. We were always told that boys had to be tough. You know, boys couldn't cry. You know, when boys hurt, you know, you're not supposed to baby them. You know, you're going to make them soft. You know, those are the things that men would tell women, hey, Deborah, that were raising boys, oh, you're going to make that boy soft. He going to be a mama's boy. So you learn to almost ignore their feelings sometimes because it's so much of that, oh, I don't want to make him soft. He's got to be a man. I don't want people in the world to be dumping on him. I don't want him to be weak because society will eat him up. You know, we fall for that mindset, and a lot of times we leave our boys scarred. Our boys have nobody to talk to because we're too busy listening to these men saying, you know, don't be babying that boy. Don't do that. You're going to make him weak. You know, this, that, and the other. Well, they need somebody to talk to too. They need somebody that sees them, somebody that cares about them just like girls do. And so that's a mindset that we need to change when it comes to our boys and raising boys. And I understand about not coddling them and all of that, but boys need people to talk to too. Because what happens is when they don't have that, that's where that unresolved anger is coming from. That's when they are emotionally not available because they can't trust women. Because women, their mothers have always made them feel foolish for having feelings. They were always told, you know, tough it up, you know, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to be crying, you know, you need to be tougher, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we teach our boys that they need to be tough all the time. And then when life hits them, when they're grown, they don't know what to do with it. Some of them overreact. Some of them, you know, just cut off. They just shut off and they're not even emotionally available to anybody. They don't even want to talk to anybody now because they've had to suppress it their whole life because they were told that if they showed emotion, that meant they were weak. That meant they were less than a man. So we need to change how we're dealing with these young men, these boys, so that when they're adults, they know how to communicate what's going on with them. They know how to tell you, hey, I don't like how you're treating me. This is how it makes me feel. You know, but they're afraid to do that because we women, and we did it to them, y'all. We women with these old traditions, listening to these men back in the day. I think about it now, how men used to say, oh, you know, you need to leave that boy and he need to get tougher. Let him get hurt sometime. He'll be all right. You know, but I had to realize that my boys needed love too. That they needed to know that their mother was there for them, that they could come and talk to their mother about anything. I may not understand everything that a young man goes through, but at least I had an ear. for that. So we need to change how we're dealing with them, because we're creating these grown men with these anger issues, with these trust issues, that can't communicate. That comes back from home, y'all. We did that to these guys. And so now they're having to, the ones that want to change are having to go to therapy and having to learn how to be vulnerable. You know, they're having to learn that it's okay for them to cry sometimes. It's okay for them not to have all the answers. But we are guilty of doing that to these boys and making them feel like showing any sign of emotion. That's right, Deborah. To this day, your baby talks to you because you understood that. You understood that he was going to need somebody that didn't judge him. And they need to see that from a woman. They need to see that from a woman, because they judge how they treat women, or how they trust women by how their mothers deal with them, or how their mothers dealt with them, even how their mothers deal with them now as they're grown. It affects how they treat other women. And like I say, we've done some damage. We all have, because that was the old way. The babies fall down. They don't want you to run over to the boy and dust him off. Leave him alone. He all right. Leave him. I don't know how many times I heard that when my boys were playing sports. Leave him alone. He's all right. And a lot of times they weren't all right. But anyway, so we need to do better, because we're putting men out there that can't stay in relationships, don't know how to be the head of their household, don't know how to put God first, and don't know how to be leaders. But we've got to change what we do. And so another thing that is old and outdated is that religion is a mandatory set of rules that you have to follow. People are understanding that it's all about a personal relationship with God. It's not about going to church and doing everything, doing a service exactly right, this, that, and the other. You got to do more than that. It's fine to do that. It's fine to have that order in the church, but that's not going to get you by when you walk out that church. What you going to do Monday through Saturday when life is hitting you? You have got to be able to know God for yourself. People are understanding that they have to have a personal relationship with God, because God is with you everywhere. God is with you everywhere. And so you can't just be focused on what happens on Sundays. You have to have a relationship so that you can walk with God day to day. So that idea of just those mandatory rules, that's all religion is, that's false. That's something we need to change. You have to be able to have your relationship with God with you 24/7. 24/7. And you do have to stay in the Word, Deborah, because that's where you're going to get your guidance from. That's where you're going to get your strength from. And that's where your peace is going to come from, because there's so much stuff happening in this world. If you don't have a relationship with God, if you don't have some Word in you, you will be tossing and turning and not being able to sleep. If you're watching the news, seeing all this stuff happening, you won't even be able to get any sleep. You'll be anxious all the time. And that's why it's so important to know whose hands that you're in. That's where that personal relationship comes from. And you guys, my final thought is we all carry baggage, no matter where we go. I mean, it's inevitable. If you've ever dealt with another person, if you've ever been in any type of situation, you collected some bags. Now, whether you're still dragging them with you or not, that's up to you. But most of us drag those bags for years and years. You have to make up your mind, because things are going to happen. But what kind of baggage and how much you choose to carry through the rest of your life, that's totally within your control. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. We can control if it's going to be a temporary setback, or if we're going to allow that to rule the rest of our lives. So we have choices. You have to decide what's designated, what's assigned to you, and what's going to be important to take with you down the road. So if you're trying to go somewhere in your life, if you're trying to be better, like I said, we're already finna be in May tomorrow. I'm praying that everybody is a little bit better than they were in January. If not, if you feel like you're right where you are back from January, you need to check those bags. You're dragging some stuff that's holding you down. You dragging some other people's stuff. You dragging your stuff. You dragging some stuff you need to, like Deborah says, let go and let God. Because you're trying to do too much still carrying the same stuff. And one thing I learned about God, you got to get free. You got to get free from some stuff. If you truly want to have the peace of God in your life, if you truly want to have a relationship with God, you are going to have to sacrifice. Sacrifice some of those bags you've been carrying. I don't care if you've been carrying them your whole life. There's got to be a time when you get sick and tired of feeling tired. And the only way you're going to get lighter, the only way you're going to get lifted up, you got to give those things to God. And you have to let God free you from those things. You know, some things are so familiar to us. We've talked about it. We've cried about it. And it's just become part of our life. But we allow that. You know, nothing happens to any of us just to be happening. God had a purpose for it all. And so one thing I've learned about God is very intentional about what he allows to happen to us. So you're supposed to get a lesson out of it. You are not supposed to drag those things throughout the rest of your life and continue to talk about all the pain that you suffered 20 and 30 years ago. Get the lesson. Get the lesson out of it and let it go and move on. So the choice is up to you if you're going to be weighed down or if you're going to be lifted up. So you need to check your bags. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the week and a wonderful May. We're starting a new chapter, you guys. May 1st, that's a new month. So whatever you haven't gotten done since January 1, if you're still heavy and weighed down, you need to check your bags and you need to get on your knees and ask God to lift those burdens from you. You're welcome, Deborah. Lift those burdens from you. You know, life is too short to be sad. Life is too short to be weighed down with things that don't belong to you. Freedom is out there, y'all. You just got to want it bad enough. You have got to want it bad enough. And God is just the person who can help you get it. Thank you, guys. I love y'all. I'm going to say a quick prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you, first of all, just to say thank you. Thank you for another day. We do not take that for granted. God, we thank you for our life, our health, and our strength. God, we know we have been through some stuff, God, but we know, God, that with you, all things are possible. So with you, we can let go of those things that have hurt us, those things that we've been dragging from year to year. God, help us to let go of the people from our past. You know, God, help us to let go of the trauma from our past, Father God. Help us to look forward and know that while those things were behind us, you are before us, God. Help us to keep our eyes on you, Father God. Help us to focus on having a better life. Help us to do those things that honor you the most, Father God. And help us to move forward. Help us to stop procrastinating and help us to redeem the time. God, we thank you. We love you. We give you all the glory, all the honor, all the praise. And I pray for everyone with Sister I Got You. And God, we love you. And good night. Bye-bye.